Hello and welcome to Ikike's Digest, your learning space on Home FTV. I am Kome Ojomo. On Ikike's Digest, we aim to continuously bring to light environmental issues as it affects communities and our food system. We interrogate government policies and provide our listeners with adequate information. In today's edition, we will be looking at what's on our plates. What's on our plate? With emphasis, what is on our plate? What do we eat as humans? With the recent survey done by Health of Mother Earth Foundation, we realize that it's no longer news that GMOs have been making rounds and have stayed longer than we anticipated, especially in Nigeria. Many Nigerians have little or no knowledge of GMOs or its implication. One question on people's lips today is how do they identify GMOs? I'm sure that's why HomeF decided to embark on the shelf survey. Have you ever wondered or paused to consider what you consume? Have you ever wondered what you buy when you visit those big supermarkets or when you go to the shelf on a daily basis? In a recent shelf survey that was conducted, it showed that many Nigerians still grapple with labeling issue and do not know what is on their plates. People just go to the markets randomly, pick up things from the shelf without being able to identify these objects. The regulatory bodies in charge have not tried to educate Nigerians about how to identify this. And with me in the studio to discuss what we consume is Joyce Brown. Joyce Brown is a food sovereignty advocate and a public health scientist. Joyce works with Health of Mother Earth Foundation as a project lead for hunger politics and a director of programs. She is on the board of Alliance for Food Sovereignty in Africa and coordinates the youth platform. Welcome, Joyce.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. We're going to go straight. So let's talk about the recently approved telomeres and the Nigerian food system.
Yeah. So the telomeres is one variety, one genetically modified variety that has spawned so much reaction from the Nigerian populace. Before telomeres was approved, there were a number of other products, over 20 products that have been approved by the National Biosafety Management Agency for various reasons, some for field trials, some for use for food and processing, and two of them for commercial release. And the crops for commercial release included cowpea, which is practically the beans that we consume, and cotton. But with telomeres, I think a lot of people really expressed concern, especially on social media. There was a lot of there was an uproar, people speaking out against probably because it's beans is a staple food, but corn, I think corn is much more popular, something people love to eat. People, I'm amazed when I'm returning from work and I see cars parked by the roadside. People are trying to buy corn, especially when it's corn season. So, and people are concerned for a number of reasons. And when that's telomeres was released in Nigeria, that was about the time when Mexico, which is the center of origin for maize, decided to discontinue cultivating genetically modified variety of maize because they wanted to preserve the country's diversity, its rich diversity, the local and indigenous varieties. But at the same time, Nigeria was approving telomeres. Another very key issue of concern is the fact that there's no evidence that there was risk assessment, adequate long-term risk assessment that was conducted before that telomeres was released. Then I think the National Biotechnology Development Agency said they were going to soon put out the report or the risk assessment documents, but till now we have not seen.
That means it's safe to say that there are health implications.
There are health implications, and there are issues with the way GMOs are approved in Nigeria, because we cannot go on approving products that people will consume. Everyone, rich, poor, middle class, will consume, right? Without ensuring that due diligence is done, testing is done to be sure that there are no implications. And researchers have shown that the consumption of GMOs are linked with various health implications, including cancers, immune disorders, liver and kidney issues. Right, so there are implications like that, and it is it goes without saying that that should be the first point of call, that adequate long-term testing is done before any such product is released. So there is also the implication of contaminating our local varieties, and it might be too late when we realize that that is a huge problem for our country. So we, HOMEF actually issued a statement to call on the government to put to reverse that permit, the permits for the telomeres and all other GMOs that have been approved for commercial release.
So let's talk about commercial release. Let me take it up from there. How do consumers get involved in all of this when it's this rights, when they're pushed into laws? Are consumers carried along?
Well, I would say not adequately. It's in the National Biosafety Management Agency Act that there will be public displays put up on the website of the NBMA and I think in 2 national papers. But that's really not sufficient. A whole lot of people are not aware when those a whole lot of people are not aware we have an agency regulating GMOs. Many people do not know anything about GMOs in the first place. Sure. And then, I mean, they don't know when these applications are up. And even when HOMEF and a number of other concerned CSOs have written objections, looked at applications for GMOs, scientifically examined those applications and written objections against approvals of those products, they were not considered. The agency still went ahead to approve such products. So we don't think Nigerian populace is carried along adequately in terms of decision making. And some of these approvals are given hurriedly, before even the public will get to know about them and be able to make meaningful input into those decision making processes.
Okay, so for emphasis sake and for the sake of my listeners, can you expressly tell us what GM seeds and crops are circulating in the Nigerian market?
Well, the ones we should be most concerned about are the BT cowpea, which is BT beans. So when you're buying beans in the market, you should be worried if you are eating genetically modified beans or not, because that's been in circulation since 2021. It was approved in 2019. And another product is the BT cotton, which is also in circulation, and most recently the telomeres. Others like soy, cassava, maize have been brought in at one time or the other for field trials, and some for food, feed, and processing.
Yeah. Wow, I got lost in the conversation right now because it's really sad to know that the beans that I eat for my moi moi,
your akara,
the local pancakes are being affected by all of these field trials. I wonder why the government is doing this to us. I would say, I would all be affected one way or another.
Yeah, at this stage, it's beyond field trials. Now the seeds are approved. They are now being given to farmers to plant already. So when you go to a supermarket, when you go to a general market to buy beans, you are most likely consuming. You're likely, not most likely, you're likely. There's a chance that you're consuming the BT cowpea, the BT beans. Yeah, we should. It's really cause for worry. Yes.
You've been listening to Joyce Brown, a food sovereignty expert and a public health scientist. She has exposed a lot about the GM seeds that is circulating the Nigerian market. And it's sad to note that a lot of these seeds are already in our open market. We'll go on a short break, and when we return, you'll hear from her how we will continue to identify these seeds and our call to the government. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for a conducive and serene environment to carry out your research works and need the right content to be at your best? Are you a lover of academics and intellectual books? Do you seek proper works of research for knowledge enhancement? Or you want a place to read at your leisure? The HOMEF Library and Resource Center is the right place to be. With our well-arranged and fully stocked bookshelves, searching for your preferred genres and authors is made much easier than you could ever imagine. With our well-experienced librarians and guides, you've got a reading and research pleasure to catch up with. at HOMEF Library and Resource Center, Benin City, Nigeria. It is simply an unforgettable experience.
Welcome back. We've been having this conversation on what's on our plates, where we're examining what we eat as um, individuals, what we find on our shelf. And with us to discuss this conversation has been Joyce Brown, a public health scientist. Before we went on the break, Joyce, we were talking about government policies. Now let's further talk about see why governments approve these things despite the implication. What do you think it's in for them?
Well, we think that the government is under a lot of pressure from the corporations producing these seeds and other international actors, local and international actors, and it's in our opinion it's mostly vested interest because the solutions are with the people. The issues of food insecurity are not mostly because the farmers are not able to produce. Yes, there are issues, security issues that have driven farmers off their farms, and many of them are in IDP camps. But also, most of the food that is produced is wasted because of lack of storage and processing facilities, and that's over 40% of food produced being wasted. So, in the first place, we have to address the issues of insecurity. Making farmers not to be able to produce as they would normally do, and address the issue of wastage. And there are pests and diseases. There are issues of droughts that the promoters of GMOs base this technology on, or the reason for pushing technology on us on. But these are problems that have local solutions. If you speak to farmers, they have ways by which they address all of these issues. Pests and diseases, for example, farmers use a popular tree which is popularly known as dogoyaro. That's the neem plant. They're able to produce pesticides from it. That is very, very active. And other issues that farmers have found a way over the years, they found a way to deal with. So pushing in GMOs on farmers, on consumers who are continuously saying no, we don't want these seeds, it means there has to be something else behind it. And of course it's only the government that can really say why they keep doing this, because GMOs are not the solution to food insecurity.
So I'm going to hold on to there's a comment you made as to sort of you giving us the alternative to this food. But before we come back to that, let's talk about the shelf survey that was carried out. What were your findings?
So the findings were alarming. We started this survey in 2018. We did a follow-up in 2019, and each time we visit or we go through 10 major cities, and in these 10 major cities we look at 10 major supermarkets. And over time we have found that the number of GM products have been increasing, steadily been increasing. And the last one we did in 2023 revealed that altogether there are over 50 different products, right, 50? In the market. Yes, that are different brands that contain genetically modified ingredients. Some contain soy, some contain maize. Those are the two major ingredients that contain soy.
Soy. Oh,
soy.
Okay.
Yes. So you have vegetable oils, you have cereals, you have some seasoning, cake mixes, different kinds of things. But I think the products that had more of these GMOs were cereals, especially those made from corn. So, and these are everyday cereals. They are cereals that I wouldn't want to call brand names here, but they are products that people consume on a daily basis.
Especially children.
Yes, especially children, and even for adults. So, and nobody is really speaking about this. Nobody is really regulating this, because as of 2018, when we did the first survey, the National Biosafety Management Agency would say that there are no GMOs in the market except the ones that they have certified to be safe, until we did the survey and found those products in the market, and we're like, so who's regulating these ones? And obviously no one at the moment.
Still on this shelf survey thing, let's talk about the labeling. how conspicuous were those items? Were they boldly written for the layman to have access to them?
It's pretty difficult. In fact, we had to do training for for volunteers who went to the field to look at this product, but some couldn't find them. It would take someone else to go to the same market, and because we know where the labeling is, how it is done, so it's easy for us to spot them. But for the average person, the average consumer going to shop, they don't have an idea that those things are there. And for those who even know, okay, let me check, it's difficult to see because they are listed in between the where they're listing the ingredients. Yes, so for the consumer out there, you want to know how to identify those processed foods that contain genetically modified ingredients. You go to the back of the products where the ingredients are listed. Just check in between, you might see, oh, made from genetically modified maize or soy, or produced with genetic engineering, or made from bioengineered ingredients, or those sort of things. So just take a look at the back of the product where the ingredients are listed, or beneath where the ingredients are listed. But those are for processed foods, packaged foods that are mostly imported. But the most worrying aspect is where we have beans, cotton, and now maize modified as seeds that are given to farmers. So when we say there's a problem with labeling and Nigeria cannot actually effect labeling, we are told that, oh, this teller maize is labeled, there's only label as hybrid teller maize. But that is at the point of giving it to the farmers. What happens when the farmer plants it, harvests it, takes it to the market, spreads it out on the basin, and people go purchase in baskets, or even if they are purchasing in bag, you can be sure that it is not labeled. Yes, so, and that's a major problem. And even if in some kinds of markets where a minority of people buy food from, even if it's possible to label them, how about in the open market? And how about when you process that beans, you make akara, you make moi moi with it, or you roast your corn on the roadside, how will it be labeled? So people are still going to consume GMOs without knowing what they're eating, and that's a major problem. GMOs in most of the countries where some of these seeds are grown or approved, their markets are such that people can, you have market segregation. This is for organic food. This is genetically modified, and so people can decide, oh, I want to eat this, or I want to eat the organic, even though the organic food is mostly more expensive. But here, it's not something we can enforce, and this is one reason why we should say no to GMOs. Besides, of course, the economic and environmental and human health implication. So we've not spoken so much about the economic implication, but there is a big challenge with when these seeds are brought in, the farmers plant, and in the first season, it looks like, oh, this performs well, this produces well. But after that, that seed reduces in productivity. So you cannot keep replanting as you would with natural varieties or the indigenous varieties. So the farmers would have to go back to the companies producing or distributing.
Controlling of the seeds.
That is what it means. And that is what we think is the overall agenda, because they're trying to control the Nigerian food system, the African food system. So they're making it in a way that farmers have to go back to them each year to purchase these seeds. And some of these seeds are made with processes that destroy soil the microorganisms in the soil, especially the beneficial microorganisms in the soil, because they have some of them have antibiotic markers in them, especially the BT ones, which also have implications in terms of antibiotic resistance in humans. So there are a lot of other implications spread across the cultural ones, the economic implications, the environmental implications, health implications. And for these reasons, that's why HOMEF says Nigeria should ban GMOs, because we have what it takes in terms of land, in terms of seeds, in terms of human resources to actually grow our own food and be self-reliant. Because with COVID-19, we saw the implication of being dependent on other countries for your food supply. We're hearing rumors of war. We're hearing news of wars. which affect the movement of food from one country to another. So it's high time we started putting in processes, putting in structures, strengthening our own food and farming system is such that when things like this happen, pandemics, wars, and all sorts of things, we can be self-sufficient.
Oh, wow. So much to assimilate. And worse thing is the fact that my favorite bean cake is being affected. But then what are the alternatives to this?
So there are alternatives, and there is a way our farmers have been producing food over the years. There are practices that have helped farmers to address or tackle issues of pests and diseases. And one very important practice is mixed cropping. Right, so before now we were not used to planting just one crop on the farmland, but with GMOs, of course, because of the modifications that are done, you have to plant a single crop. And so now we have farmers who say, oh, I'm a rice farmer, some say I'm a yam farmer, but that doesn't help. It helps the pests to thrive. But with mixed cropping, there are combinations of crops that will help to repel these pests, and they're not able to take over the whole farm. So all of these practices, all of these there's also a scientific aspect. They are all embodied in what we call agroecology. Now, agroecology is a system of farming that aligns with nature, right? That mimics nature, and it includes practices like the mixed cropping we've talked about, crop rotation, changing the kinds of crop you plant on the farm from year to year, and that also helps with the issue of pests, of pest infestations. And there's also biological pest management, that includes various measures to pull out pests from the farm, and helping the farms to grow or optimally. Yes, and the agroecology also includes processes, right, that help to improve soil health, that helps to revive dead soils, and so that way farmers will be able to have a productive system, crops producing naturally the way that they should produce. So instead of addressing the what has gone wrong with the soil that is causing these pests, and disease infestations, we are looking out for solutions that are more like overboard. But the solutions are really simple. There is no way a dead soil or an unhealthy soil can produce healthy food. So we should pay attention to reviving the soils, and this is what agroecology helps to do. So that's why we call on the government to support and invest in agroecology, support the smallholder farmers who produce more than 70% of the food that we consume. Most of what GMOs and this modern agricultural biotechnology produces is food for machines and for export mostly. But the food that is consumed across the world is produced by smallholder farmers. So if Nigeria wants to address food insecurity, Nigeria should be determined to support the smallholder farmers. Extension service is almost non-existent in Nigeria, but that is one thing that really helps farmers in the time past in terms of identifying high-yielding seeds, combinations that will help with pests and diseases, and help with productivity and all that. So Nigeria needs to address to revive that system. Of course, address the issues of insecurity, address the issues of waste, help farmers access credits and on time. Some farmers have said sometimes the processes are so tedious, and by the time they eventually get the loans, it's past the farming season. And obviously that money you cannot account for later. So these are some of the things that the government can put in place, and we'll be on our way to achieving food sovereignty, whereby people have access. Everyone has access, not just the rich people. Everyone has access to food, but now not just food, because the emphasis for most people is on Nigerians are hungry, there is climate change, so we need to produce a whole lot of food. But the emphasis really should be not just that we have enough food, but we have healthy food.
So let me quickly ask this. So can agroecology feed the world?
Sure. So there are studies that have shown that agroecology increases productivity by over 100%. So it's already demonstrated, and not far away from us, there's a farm in Kwale, in Abuja, where agroecology is practiced on a large scale. And since its inception in 2019, no chemical fertilizer, no chemical pesticide, that's the inorganic pesticides and fertilizers, none of that has been used on the farm. But the farm is thriving. In fact, where the pests are ravaging other nearby farms, their farm is intact because of course, biological pest management, agroforestry, mixed cropping, introducing animals on the farm, because these animals, of course, produce the manure that they use on the farm. All of this is encompassed in agroecology, and it is it's a whole system that works together to ensure that you have enough food and you have healthy food, and it also helps to diversify income for farmers. So agroecology works. It is not just an alternative; it is the future, especially if we want to have an ecosystem that works. We have to, especially if we want to preserve our ecosystems and preserve our indigenous seed varieties.
Wow, it's been an interesting ride with Joyce Brown. I mean, it behoves on us all to protect the food that we eat, especially on our government, to check all of these that seeds that they are approving, when we can actually go back to natural farming. Agroecology is the way out. You have heard it from Joyce Brown, who is a food sovereignty expert and a public health scientist. Thank you so much for that. So, any final word for us?
So it's mostly to the consumers, the Nigerian public. A lot of people have already started speaking up against GMOs, which is very, very helpful. With Teller Maize, a lot of people spoke against GMOs on social media, and after then, webinars, conferences on GMOs have had a lot of people also calling out on the government to do the right thing, to ban GMOs. So this is to encourage us to keep talking, to let our government know that we really do not want GMOs, and to, if we really want to address food insecurity, this is a call on the government to look inwards, to address the structural issues, the fundamental issues that are actually hindering productivity.
You've heard it all. It behoves on each and every one of us to protect the food that we eat, while we'll call on the government to do the right thing. Thank you so much, Joyce Brown, for being part of today's episode. And we hope that when we call on you some other time, you would graciously grace us with your presence.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. And we've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you for staying with us. And you would agree that it's been an exciting journey into these issues. We hope to see you in our next edition. But remember to follow us on our social media handles and visit our website, www.homef.org, and follow our social media at EcoHomef. I remain your host, Kome Ojomo.